Water when I'm thirsty. Drink.
What up, what up? Good night, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Water for the Thirsty, the word simply, the word refreshing. I'm the facilitator of the conversation. My name is Jared. With me tonight is Jerry, all the way from far down under south in Trinidad and Tobago. Some of the others I expect will be here with us soon, but we're gonna start with what we have. Jerry, how was the week?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Started with 2 holidays back to back.
So you refresh, man. You good to go.
Not quite. Kind of worked through the holidays, but yeah, it's good though. It's still good.
That's good. That's good. I am at the end of my week and I am happy
Exhausted.
for Sabbath. Let's say that.
Yeah,
We just say happy.
I hear that.
Happy for Sabbath. So Jerry, I have a question for you about one of them things. What is the relationship between a promise and a covenant? I'm going to start with Deuteronomy 29:19 because that's something we read this week. Deuteronomy 29 was April 2nd, which was 2 days ago. So
Right.
like Wednesday? No, yes, Wednesday. So
Wednesday.
Wednesday I read Deuteronomy 29:19, and I was like, I never thought about that before. What is the relationship between a promise and a covenant? And of course, I went and I applied. I enlisted my friend Chat.
Uncle Chat.
Uncle Chat.
The well-learned Uncle Chat.
But I wanted to know what you thought about it. First, should I read the verse? Deuteronomy 29:9.
I read it in NIV. I don't know if you want me to read it out.
Sure, go into NIV because I read it in a different version, but I'm interested in seeing how NIV is rendering it.
Right. So, when such a person hears the words of this oath and they invoke a blessing on themselves, thinking, I will be safe, even though I persist in going my own way, they will bring disaster on the watered land as well as the dry. Which means they're about to wreck themselves.
Oh, I need to look again. Deuteronomy, because see, I like that you read that version because I would have never gotten this question reading that version.
Which version did you read?
I read the New International Reader's Version, which is the Children's Bible version.
Okay.
Because I try to see how simply they're describing it to the children, just to kind of get fresh eyes on it.
Yeah. Somebody said if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you don't really understand it, right?
Right. So I'm trying to read the whole Bible like
Wow.
like that, right?
You taking the how does it go? Unless you become like a child, take it to another level, right?
Like that.
Yep.
Oh, your Bible says oath. The King James says.
Yeah. Here's the words of this oath.
Yeah, and it come to pass when he heareth the words of this curse that he blessed himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace. Though I walk in the imagination of mine heart. Did I read in the right thing? Deuteronomy 29:19? Yeah, I can walk in my heart to add drunkenness to thirst. It's a whole different.
I think the theme is there. I'm interested though as to why
Your version says oath.
Oath and curse.
This version says curse. And well, I will read to you what caused my question from the Children's Bible. Some people who worship those gods will hear the promise that seals the covenant I'm making. They think they can escape trouble by what they're saying. They say, we'll be safe even though we're stubborn and go on our own way. They will bring trouble on the whole land.
Yeah. I get it.
So the word oath, oath of covenant. So that word there means oath, oath of covenant, and curse
Yeah.
all at the same time. So it technically is a promise.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, promise is not a bad transition. Yeah,
I do. I don't think it's a bad translation. I do feel though that I don't. I don't. hmm, I don't know that God ever makes promises.
You don't think so?
When I, let me rephrase that. The a promise suggests to me it doesn't suggest the weightiness or depth of a covenant or an oath.
The oath is
Because
not a promise.
just hear me out. Generally, when I look at what a covenant involved, more often than not, it would involve, like if you and I made a covenant in business, we didn't even need a contract. You cut your wrist, I'd cut mine. We would basically let our blood intertwine as our hands shake and basically say, if I break this covenant, I expect whatever thing to fall
A
upon.
covenant is a contract.
It's more, to me, it's even weightier or more weighty than a contract. So it's almost like, I mean, I'm thinking this as I'm going, almost like if you had degrees of weightiness, you might start with a promise, a contract, a covenant being the highest form. And it seems to me in most instances in the Bible, God gives or God makes covenants with us when it comes to particular things.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
what you would do with Deuteronomy 28 verse 9?
Hold on, let me see. 28 verse 9, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. The Lord established you as a holy people, as he promised you on oath, if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in obedience to him. Yes, you see, kind of like Ratchet. It's not just a promise, it's a covenant. You like this old adage about don't take it as a threat, as a promise. It's like you're ratcheting it up. There's more weight behind it. I mean, if somebody were to say to you, I promise you, I've said or done this thing that has hurt you or made you feel disrespected, and I promise you I wouldn't do it again. That's good, but I think if you make a covenant or an oath that you're not going to do it again, what you're implying to me is you are going to do all the work that is necessary for you to become the person who wouldn't do this thing to hurt me again, as opposed to merely trying not to hurt me again, if that makes sense. So
Interesting.
again, it seems like it's a weightier thing.
You have
No,
oaths, you
I
have
could be wrong, and they
promises,
could
you
all
have
mean the
covenant.
same thing. That's possible, but yeah. Your thought was what? It's essentially all the same thing?
No, well, I didn't have an idea, so I asked Uncle Chad.
Mm-hmm. To which his response was?
I asked Uncle Chad to define words. Here's what I asked Uncle Chad. What are the Hebrew words translated promise and covenant by the NIRV in Deuteronomy 29:19? Compare and contrast them. All right, that's what I asked him. So he says the words translated promise and covenant come from distinct Hebrew terms. Promise, the Hebrew word translated as promise in this verse is, and they put the Hebrew, Shevuah, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, which means an oath or a sworn covenant. So it's now equating promise to oath. I did an English oath versus promise in Google Chat just now, and it says an oath is a promise. That's what comes up. It's a little bit nuanced. Another definition down here says a promise has nuance and shades of gray, whereas an oath is absolute. But essentially, an oath is a promise. A vow, a promise is another word. All right. which would align with the word here. It is an oath or a sworn statement. This term conveys a solemn declaration or commitment, often made under oath before God. It carries binding force, emphasizing the seriousness of the declaration. What's interesting, though, is that a covenant, the Hebrew word for covenant in this passage is beret, and they put the Hebrew there, which refers to a formal agreement, a contract, or a treaty between two parties. In biblical usage, it often signifies God's binding relationship with Israel, established through laws and obligations and sealed by a sacred commitment. And then they have a table of comparison for contrast, meaning promise or slash oath,
Right.
solemn oath or sworn declaration, covenant, a binding agreement or contract. Scope can be single spoken commitment. Covenant typically involves obligations, terms, and a formal relationship. Binding nature, highly binding due to its sworn nature, legally and relationally binding, often involving ritual elements.
Okay. Which I guess is where I was going with the, yeah.
Right. Usage in Deuteronomy 29:19 refers to a sworn commitment in the covenant, refers to the overarching formal agreement between God and Israel. Emphasis, the sworn aspect of the commitment for promise or oath, and covenant is the relational and legal aspect of the agreement. It says, as a summary, while Chevois, promise/oath, emphasizes the sworn nature of the commitment, beret or covenant highlights a formal binding relationship with structural obligations. In Deuteronomy 29:19, they work together to underscore the seriousness of God's relationship with God, both in terms of his promises and their covenantal responsibilities. So I started reflecting on that, and as I'm reading over Deuteronomy, particularly, in light of the covenant that was made at Sinai, I recognize that the covenant that was made, the relationship that was entered into, and the covenant that the Ten Commandments represent the terms of, or were part of the terms of, is a relationship, a formal relationship that the people of Israel went into for him to be their God, and they will be his people.
Right.
And that relationship has terms to that relationship, but it's a formal relationship. If I am to be your God, then you are to treat me as such. And if you are to be my people, I will treat you as such. And if you be faithful to me, this is what I will do for you. And if you are unfaithful to me, this is what I will do.
This is the outcome, yeah.
Right? You agree? Yes. Now, forever and ever, amen. I am your God. You are my people. Covenant.
Right.
The promise is, I swear to continue working faithfully in this relationship. I promise to do these things as stated in the in the terms
of the
covenant.
So it's almost like the promise is an element or component of the covenant.
It can be.
It can be.
Because you don't have to promise. If you sign on the, well, I guess if you sign on the thing, you're promising to do that.
Right.
But the covenant, the promise is the commitment to honor the covenant. The covenant is a binding legal arrangement.
I think I like that definition. The promise is the commitment to honor the covenant. Yeah, I could see that, because even when he said this is what 28:9, he promised you on oath. So I'm committing to keep this.
Honor what was stated here, what was declared here, what was agreed to here.
Yeah.
So, I had that little wrestle. I was like, oh, interesting. So what that then turned me into was the binding, legal, and relational thing. You know how we've been talking lately about the on and off switch between, that we perceive God to have with us, and we wondering if if we're good with him or if we're not, and if we're good with him or we're not, or we do something and he switch off the switch.
Yeah.
Covenant, we are binding into this relationship, and we will
Including
always
all the
be in
terms
this
and conditions.
relationship.
So there is no off switch. As long as we're in relationship, it's on.
As long as there's a covenant that's on.
Yeah.
And it might not be in good terms. It might not be in a good space. Because clearly Israel acted up and God had to deal with them.
Yeah, reprimand.
But then the collective never stopped being his people. There were some people he had to, say, well, they're not being faithful to this covenant. You all can't be a part of these people. But he was always faithful to the collective.
Yeah.
He always remained the God of the collective. Even when he was punishing them, even when he never turned his back and said, "You're not my people anymore."
I guess you see that even with like Lot, right? Where he says, if there's 10 people, 5 people, whatever, I will, whatever small collection of collective, I will still extend my goodness and mercy. I just need that collective.
So when I decide to give my life to Jesus and I decide to make Jesus Lord, am I entering into that new covenant? And do I now have the security of the perpetual nature of that relationship until he decides to file for divorce because I have been unfaithful? And then he terminates the contract, the covenant.
Well, I want to say yes, but I want to go a little further. Is it that he files for divorce, or is it that we make the relationship completely untenable by virtue of our unfaithfulness?
Causing him to file for divorce, because he's the one who's ultimately terminating the contract. When he puts us in the fire, right?
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
But then again, the contract, is it an individual one or a collective one? Because with the Israelites, it was a collective contract. You will be my people, I will be your God. And there were some people where he was like, you're not going to benefit from the benefit of this contract with the people. You're all going to have to go, but I will maintain the contract with the people.
Well, I mean, even on the day of judgment, I think we see the same thing playing out, right? Because we, as part of spiritual Israel, having accepted Jesus, that covenant or contract still plays out. Those who want to avail themselves of it, you go here, and those who don't want to be part of it, we have another environment prepared for you, right?
So we kind of establish whether we are or aren't his people
based on our response or actions in the covenant,
because of our faithfulness to his lordship. Our faithfulness to his lordship is a measure of whether we belong to the group of people or not, the sheep or the
whether
goat.
we choose to belong,
Whether we choose to belong to the people or not.
Yeah. But this is why it's funny you raise that, because one of the thoughts I had this week was when he said to them that believe on him, he gave power to become sons and daughters of God. And we generally take this approach that, I mean, and you'll see it in certain cultures or subcultures where regardless of the life you live, who you were, whatever, it's like, everybody's smiling down on us from heaven, right? And he loves everybody equally, but he's saying for you to be a son and daughter and be an heir, you have to have signed up for this covenant.
You had to be a part of the terms of the covenant, because the covenant is being extended to these folks.
Correct.
Do you belong to these folks or not?
And you will demonstrate that by your choices. And if you're choosing not to be part of those people, then so it's like how in government we might say, okay, there's funding available for everyone who's pursuing a bachelor's, master's, even a doctoral degree. If you dictate and determine academics is not for me, we're not going to make that funding available to you because you decided, maybe you just want to be an artist, which is fine, but you can't benefit from this other thing that's been made available.
So I know that Jesus does, because there's this dynamic of he was in relationship with Abraham, he was in relationship with Job, he was in relationship with David, he was in relationship with these people as individuals.
Mhm.
But the covenant is with the collective.
Mhm. And so they would benefit, so that even when they would, as egregious as several of their faux pas were, they benefited from, again, the terms and conditions with the collective, as long as they remained in relationship. Because again, when I sit down, I look
As long
at
as they remain in relationship, or as long as they honor the terms of the
under,
covenant.
yes, right, you are under the terms of that, because even when I always look at the posture of David and Saul, Old Testament Saul, where on the face of it, what David did is seen as significantly worse as compared to what Saul did. Yet, look at the stance when they were confronted by their deeds. David was like, I sin against you and before heaven. Take whatever you want from me except your Holy Spirit.
You
Let
are
me
my
get
God,
back to
I am your
honoring
people.
this.
You
Correct.
are
Let
my
me get
God, I
back
am
to
your people.
honoring. Saul was just like, hey, don't make me look bad. And don't take the kingdom from me. I don't really care about the state of our relationship and me being yours and you being mine. Don't let me lose my kingdom. Don't let me look bad. Completely different approach to this relationship, this covenant, right?
But it's not just, it is a relationship, but what's the nature of a relationship? Like there's the dynamic of a father-son relationship, but then there's a dynamic of a husband-wife relationship, and those two aren't the same.
Yeah.
There's a master-slave relationship is not necessarily a father-son relationship or a husband-wife relationship. And what I'm understanding is that this covenant is, I am your God, you are my people, which demands a certain level of respect and obedience and compliance and posture and whatnot. What you see from David and Jesus modeled is their individual commitment to that type of relationship. Wherever you want, however you want it, I may be doing not what is right, which is why you have things like forgiveness and grace and mercy as part of the dynamic. Because as long as we have free will and whatnot, you're going to have those tugs of will. But if I stay in this posture, even when we have that tugs of will, it don't necessarily develop into full-on rebellion, which is now that I'm thinking about it, what God says to Cain very early on is that sin desires to have you, right? But you have to master it. And I think what happened with a lot of with humanity as a whole, why he had to, is that they became full-on rebellious. They did not accept him in the God role anymore.
It goes back to this point you repeatedly make about lordship, right? So in this relationship, be it husband, wife, father, child, he is the final decision maker. The final say so is his. Part of this rebellion is where he has the position of authority, but I want to execute the same or equal authority. It can't work like that. You know, this colloquial expression we have about two Borat living in one hole, right?
Thou shalt have no other gods before me, including you.
I like that. Including you, yeah. And we tend to think, because effectively to have yourself as a god is to have the enemy as God. Because we like to think, well, this is just, again, this is my opinion, right? We have divine or demonic source. If you're not tapped into the divine, you're calling it your will, you're calling it independence, you're calling it what you will, but you're just going to be functional for the whims and fancies of the other player, right?
And so I would only argue that to be correct if the whims and the fancy of the other player is not to recognize him and to recognize anything else.
Anything else, yeah.
Anything else but him. And as long as you do that, then you're subscribing to his ideology. It's not that you're recognizing him.
But you're subscribing to,
But you're subscribing to the idea of not him.
because
and he represents that idea.
Eve wasn't saying, I'm full on rebellious and I'm going to worship the devil. But she has said, not him, what I want.
What I want.
Anything but. And we know how that didn't work out too well for her, right? Or for us.
And even Jesus in the garden, he was wrestling against, I don't want to do this. This is painful for me. Not I am worshiping him. Right? Now there was that temptation in the wilderness.
Wilderness, yeah.
But the first temptation wasn't that. The first temptation was honor yourself with your food, right?
Which
and then there was a
worship doesn't seem bad, right? Which in and of itself doesn't seem bad, right? You're hungry.
Except that when you dig a few layers down, you're going against what you agreed to, which means you're now doing what you want over what he instructed, so. Like the more that whole idea of the covenant becomes more clear in my mind, the whole thing just kind of fits into one neat kind of like all of it is the same thing said a different way. It's all. And I just think about how many times in the scripture, in every phase he says, I will be your God, and you will be my people. Down to Revelation, and the earth made new. Now what does it say? What does it say? I want to read it exactly as it says. Revelation 21 and 22. Revelation 21. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth were completely gone. There was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, a New Jerusalem. It was coming down out of heaven from God. It was prepared like a beautiful bride dressed for her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne. It said, look, God now makes his home with the people. He will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God, which is the intent. Right? We go back to Genesis. Let us make man in our own image. I will be their God. They will be my people. And then there was the old covenant, and then he decides, I'm going to make this new covenant, but they won't know me, But the new covenant is the same idea of a new covenant or a new set of terms. New set of terms governing the God-people relationship. That's the difference, is the terms of the covenant.
Because in the old covenant, everything was pointing to the person that would come and demonstrate the terms, if you want to call it that.
I'm guessing you could say that. I'm sure that's an element of it. But let's go to what the new covenant is, and maybe we could discover that. It's Jeremiah 31. Oh, open straight to it. In Jeremiah 31, verse 30. Jeremiah 31, verse 30. Well, 31. Jeremiah 31, starting at verse 31. The days are coming, announces the Lord, where I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel. I will also make it with the people of Judah.
Right.
It will not be like the covenant I made long ago I made with their people of long ago. That was when I took them by the hand, I led them out of Egypt. But they broke my covenant. They did it even though I was like a husband to them, announced the Lord. This is the covenant I will make with Israel after that time, announces the Lord. I will put my law in their minds, I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. Was different.
In the event it wasn't clear before.
The difference was the last time he wrote their laws on a piece of stone.
Yeah, now it's
that they was external to them that they had to keep. Now he's planting it inside of them as a part of who they are. Right? And he's writing the same way he wrote it on his stone, he's now writing it in them.
So it's to your point, it's a redefining of the terms, it's a deepening and an expansion on the terms.
Yes, but the covenant has the same purpose.
Yeah.
The terms of the covenant have changed.
But the covenant,
it's still a covenant that puts him as God and us as people. Well, them as people, and now us by extension, because we get grafted in, right?
Yeah.
Here's what he says. They will not need to teach their neighbor anymore, and they will not need to teach one another, saying, teach one another anymore. They will not need to say, know the Lord. That's because everyone will know me. From the least of most important to the most important, all of them will know me, announces the Lord. I will forgive their evil ways, and I will not remember their sins anymore. So it's the now I've introduced this spirit that's going to guide you and lead you into truth that you will obey, as opposed to these laws you have to learn and then enact. Right?
Yeah. And hopefully you interpret the laws correctly and all of that.
And somebody teaching you what the laws are because you didn't know them, and somebody received them, and then you had to pass it on. Now it's a direct to consumer. It's now
Direct to consumer.
Yeah. Direct to consumer.
Two things with that. And very often I use the example of even us as a group when we're dialoguing on some of the things we've read. We may start off at very dissimilar points, but I think we very seldom end at dissimilar points, because through the discussion, the Spirit will work and help you and open your eyes and your mind to things. Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't think about that. And I can only speak for myself. I know conversations we started where I was as far east as you all were west, and then as we went on, and because I think of the spirit in which we engage in discussion, you realize, but wait, this actually makes sense. And the reason I like to use that example is because I keep thinking, even for our denomination or any other religious group, if the same approach was actually applied, I think a lot of the confrontation and the back and forth would, because there's one God, right? The other thing that's interesting to me is how, to your point, it's always about him being our God, we being his people. If we would really emphasize that more, I think a lot of our wrongful ideas about him, he's this vengeful God, he's whatever, would dissipate. But also this idea that we never good enough, nothing, we can't earn his affections, all that will also go away.
That will go away because the covenant is this, and he's committed himself to treat us like he's our God.
Here's my question though. Do you think that misconception could be exploited? Because we feel like if we emphasize that, people will take his grace for granted. I think there's a fear that will happen, and so we don't emphasize the fact that you are his people.
Maybe that's almost the same way as saying, well, my wife can't leave me now, there's nothing she could do, so I will do whatever I want. I mean,
but I don't think most people who experience his grace think that. I think they're just people who are fearful that they will think that.
Well, yes, but if you're really in relationship with somebody, I mean, if you're in relationship with somebody and you know they can't leave, do you now just exploit that and do whatever you want? Because, I mean, what does that then communicate about how you really feel about the person, right?
Because if you're in a genuine relationship and you really care about the person, you're not in it for the benefits, right? You're in it for them.
Let me say, even if it's a boss-employee relationship, right? Where the employer give you the job and can't fire you, right? No matter what you do.
Public servants, sorry.
Let's go with that. No matter what you do, the boss can't fire you. I mean, you have to really do something really bad for the boss to fire you, right? Do you just say because you have that security, you now become a worthless employee? What kinds of things have to be a part of who you are to land in that space? Yeah. What kind of regard and concern you have to have for the company, the mission of the company, and the boss personally for giving you the job, right? Yep. Particularly if the boss gave you the job as a favor to somebody else, right? Or some special terms where the boss works something as I'm bless you with this job. And now you're not going to get fired no matter what you do. Or you have this strong job security, right? Where you're not worried about losing your job. You're not worried about it's recession-proof, it's layoff-proof. It's as long as you show up to work, you have a job. Right?
Yeah.
What has to happen within you to abuse that in that kind of manner, where you just kind of while out and stop coming to work, come to work late, you do come. If you come, like that's now a statement about your level of responsibility, your discipline, your
Because it's a
maturity.
lack of character.
Right.
And then you would suffer the same fate as some of the Israelites who God was like, you all not abiding by these.
I wonder though, considering that the covenant is I will be their God and they will be my people, not you will be my person. I wonder if that understanding changes anything for us, because we live in a he will be my God, I will be his person. Because if they are his people, then there's a accountability and a responsibility to the collective.
Yep.
And we don't engage as much. And there's when we say we're important, but we're not that important, you come to that kind of, you see in his dealing with the Israelites, you think about his being harsh, but he's like, nah, if this remains, it will infect the people. So I have to cut out this part that will poison this. And so he's not, while he does and has clearly demonstrated his individual relationships, individual concerns for individuals, his covenant is not this covenant. Let me say it that way. This covenant is not with the individuals. He did make a covenant with Abraham.
Yeah.
He did make a covenant with David. He didn't make a covenant with a whole lot of individuals, right? But he made a covenant with Israel, to which many of these people are, a part.
Yeah,
and then we become a part of the covenant of the them, not the covenant of the me.
I think a good example of that might be the covenant that David made with Jonathan. I make a covenant with you, but all of your seed will benefit from it. And so he goes out and he says, well, who's left? And it's like, only, who was it, Mephibosheth? I was like, you're going to benefit now from.
Yeah. I think that individualistic, that individualistic understanding of the relationship we enter with Jesus, I think it skews severely our interactions and our priorities.
100%. Even the way we engage in worship, we make worship about us, not him. And you hear people say things like, I don't know if this service was really for me today. Again, you're inverting because it really was about, the service was supposed to be about him and you being in his presence and his company.
Right? It's about him and us, not him and me.
Yeah.
It's him and us, not him and me.
So like, even if I'm listening to a sermon and things may or may not be resonating, I am there for his presence, and I understand that he has led the minister to share that word for somebody, even if I don't think it's for me. So it can't just be, yeah, I don't know if that was really a word for me today.
No,
but I actually see people falling away from, and this regardless of denomination, from church or from, how do I put it? They fall away from relationship with God because they don't feel the engagement is sufficiently or appropriately enough about them. So I want the music to be this way. I want the word to be this way. The sermon can't be more than exactly 29 minutes and 59 seconds because I have lunch exactly. Whatever the case is, right? They have all these, like some of these entertainers, they have, what do they call that list? It's like a snack list, but all these demands must be met. And if they're not, I'm not happy and I'm not performing. But again, if it's a relationship, is that really how you can or should or can behave, right?
If it's a one-to-one relationship, absolutely, there's an entitlement there.
Right.
But if the relationship is
I
am their God and they are my people, then I am part of the people. it changes the importance of evangelism because the people are now all of humanity. And
Right.
his covenant is with now with all of us. Now I am interested in making sure that all of us have this opportunity, right?
I like how you brought in that magic with entitlement, because it also minimizes that. Entitlement is always when I make things about me, right? So going back to even the analogy of the government employee who doesn't think he could be fired for anything. Entitlement is what will really entrench that, because you think, well, nah, the boss owes my dad a favor, so he can't. But if you understand it's about the organization and not just about you.
And the question isn't so much anymore, at least for me, am I saved? The question is, am I demonstrating that I belong to the people? Because he gonna save the people, and as long as I belong to the people,
I'm good.
I'm good. Because it's perpetual with the people.
Yeah. Which means I also can't be self-righteous.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Wow.
Because the people are not.
Yeah. The people about the people and about
and
their
now,
Lord. It's not about,
Now it changes the whole, I mean, I don't like to use the term social gospel, but I'm using it because it's the term, right? But not that it changes it so much, but it gives it more credibility.
It clarifies
Not in the way that people doing it is correct, but the concern for others and the well-being of others is being derived from these other people.
Yep. That's a whole different approach than just sitting in church and, hey, I got in, so who out there? It's all you to catch.
No, because, and this is the thing why I like about Revelation, right? Revelation doesn't describe the people as the people of Israel. Revelation describes the people as humanity.
Yeah. A whole multitude that no man could number.
And all of humanity who choose to be counted in the people by their demonstration of lordship to Jesus.
Correct.
As long as you are, and that's why it says to reward each one according to their works. As long as your works demonstrate your lordship to him and whoever is with him, safe.
Yeah.
So all of this, your Lord.
So all of this infighting and who looks down on who thinks their denomination is that, all of that goes out the door. I mean, I've even seen situations where we now dictate and determine what the people should look like. And you can be part of the people, but you can't be fully part of the people if you had tattoos and now
I'm sorry, the people is humanity. What you saying to me? The people is humanity.
So it might be tattoos, it might be, but then it could have been like if you had piercings, if you were black, if you were white, the people is humanity.
I'm sorry, Philip came to the Ethiopian.
Correct.
Showed him the thing, baptized him, and then the Spirit took Philip away.
And
we don't know what the Ethiopian went back to Ethiopia and did or said.
And straight away when he read it, he's like, why wasting time for let me be baptized and be part of this people?
He didn't join the people and then make any adjustments to his culture. And from what I understand reading Revelation, it's people from all nations, tongues, so that they all come in with their own cultural. What they have in common is that no matter what their culture is,
Lordship.
they are organizing their interactions here on earth under the lordship of the Christ.
So here's the question. Can it be that we are not as effective as we should be in our evangelism? Because we're trying to get people to organize all the various affairs of their life, culture, whatever it is, not so much under the lordship of Christ, but under the rules and regulations of.
Absolutely. We converting people, we are attempting to convert people to subsets of the kingdom and not the kingdom itself. One other illustration that I found useful to me is We want people to drink our water. We're not trying to introduce people to the benefits of drinking water. We want our
That was
water is good for you, but buy
that was
this
one of them
one.
Trump mic moments, Jared. Stop it.
This one.
Yeah,
It's not, hey, water is
you need
important. I have one, but they
70%
have one down
is
the street.
water,
Just
right?
as long as you're getting water that's good, that's healthy, that's pure, that's clean, and refined, get water.
Yeah, we trying to sell them on it has to be Dasani, otherwise drink Coke.
Yeah, because if you
That's
drink
not
that, if you drink that Aquafina up the street there, you're not going to be as healthy as if you drink this one down here.
And here's my thing: if you are really submitted to a lordship, you understand that if you used to drink Aquafina, and the Spirit is the one who led you to understand that now I needed to re-up and start drinking Dasani. Why are you trying to be the Holy Spirit in other people's lives? Leave the
Because
Spirit
if
to
the
do.
Holy Spirit tell you, then you know. I'm not even sure the Holy Spirit tell you drink this honey or what.
No, but let's assume he did. But then we go out and rather than let him be the Spirit and do his work, we try to do his job for him. It was always intriguing to me where he said, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel. If they be converted, baptize them," which means the conversion process, although you could plant a seed, the conversion process is God business. Why are you trying to carry God with?
Because we also are commissioned to disciple people into the way of the kingdom. So what we're doing is we're not discipling people into the benefits of drinking the water.
Yeah, we discipling them into Dasani or nothing.
Right? It's not water we're selling. We're selling brand of water.
I would dare say
if it was doing just the benefits of water, we would say it really don't matter.
Yeah. I think many of us selling the brand, so it might even be water, it might be something else, and it have Dasani on it, and yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Or you're drinking water with electrolytes and all kind of things.
Yeah.
Flavored and sparkling and spritz and we add all kind of things to the water. Color and fancy things. Because that's essentially what Jesus taught his disciples, how to live under the principles of the kingdom of regard for the people, because it's the people, God and people. That's when you now take that perspective and then look back on the all that was given to them when they came out of Israel. It was to order the society with structure so that they could demonstrate how to live as the people, how to deal with challenges when they arise, how to stay pure, how to stay healthy, how to practice this thing that's going to teach them about this next thing that's coming down the road.
But going back again to this concept of the people, I think if we understand that, then we understand we have to demonstrate or embody that, and it's not just that we telling them do this, but we haven't done it ourselves.
Correct.
Because it's just like they always say, the quickest way children learn is by observation, not by instruction, right? And I think the same is true of adults. If people see you were a particular way and now you're a different way, that is way more compelling than.
This is why the instruction is be a witness and disciple.
Yep. Can't disciple without being a witness. Ooh.
It's real simple when we, have the right lens to look at it, and then everything just kind of fits together really neatly. You don't see a vicious God. You see a God who's trying to prevent infection.
Yeah. So even some of the questions that we would be prone to ask go away as well.
Like
because
what?
Again, it focuses. So people say things like if God was harsh, or like there are people who say, well, God is too loving to keep anybody out of heaven, or God is too loving to have a hell. You're looking at it through the wrong lens. If you've demonstrated that it's not just that you don't want his lordship, you don't even want a relationship with him. Why is he going to have you suffer for all eternity in his presence if you don't even want a relationship? He's not.
Why would he want you to come and create chaos in his society?
Correct. And everything that has played out in our history has demonstrated what has happened if he lets this
I mean,
thing.
that's what happened in heaven. If he had snuffed out Satan and the angels up front,
Yep.
like this mess have to go because it will bring this. Everybody will say, "Woo, he real
Yeah,
hard boy."
absolutely.
And he didn't give them no chance, and it wasn't really that bad. And maybe they
Yeah.
was right, and that thing was simmer underneath the 6,000 years later plus, right?
Yeah,
6,000
yeah.
plus years later, you get to look and go, "Oh,
Just
really?
building momentum. Yeah.
Really? That's what happened." And then he creates this perfect world and puts two people in it, and watch them now.
Yep. But you saw that play out over and over with the children of Israel, where it's like, I'll leave some of them, and then it gets to the point where only two of the original Hummer was over 1 million people who left, right?
About
Only two of that original
600,000 men. So we'll
men,
count
right?
all the women, but men,
Only
600,000 men,
two of that original 600,000 men made it to the promised land. Everybody else,
including the leaders.
including the leaders.
Moses didn't make it neither.
Wow.
The man who come and rescue them
Mm-hmm.
and let them out, he didn't make it neither. He wasn't in it too.
Yeah.
But this idea of covenant, a formal agreement between God and Israel, and that the agreement is, I will be their God, they will be my people. To me, that changes the whole thing for me, in that security of my place once I accept Jesus as Lord. And my place is secure so long as
Correct. So that means
I
nobody should.
demonstrate lordship and that care, regard, and concern for this person because of what he's done for me.
That also would remove this whole idea of hopelessness. Because regardless of where you are, if you appreciate that, so long as I demonstrate care and this is what happens to any and all people who.
As long as you are part of that people.
Because he swear oath and he can't lie, right?
This one, because he opened the door for all y'all to come in, to be the people.
Yeah.
To be the people again. And so they have to do now and say, are you one of the people? How will I know you're one of the people? Well, let's see. You ain't act like one of the people. Every chance you get, you say, throw up the finger to the man.
Correct. And he's like, really? Bruh. Oh.
But yeah, I
like the question, I like where it led. Because it's not just about semantics, right? Promise or oath.
Yeah. So one summary statement coming out of here. Covenants are oath-bound relationships. Covenants. So I think I'd ask a follow-up question to the thing. What relationships, if any, is there between the terms?
Mm-hmm.
Summary is the oath and the covenant are interconnected. An oath is a spoken guarantee that seals and enforces the covenant, ensuring its validity. The beret sets the framework for the relationship, and a sugar provides the commitment that upholds it.
Gotcha.
So yeah. I thought that was profound.
And to your point, it allows for things to connect in a really simple and seamless way.
Mm-hmm. Covenants are oath-bound relationships. I was like, interesting.
What was that? It says covenants are what? Oath-bound?
Oath-bound,
okay.
Yeah, it's just really terms of a relationship. It's you enter in this relationship with somebody. It's a relationship that you choose to enter into.
Yep. And they once
And,
there's a
and their
will,
terms and it's a legal relationship you enter into that's binding, that there are terms surrounding the nature of the relationship and the interactions in the space.
So as I saw Cliff, what came to mind is even in terms of what he is often engaged in. If he's counseling someone, he has a client, that relationship now says what we discuss falls under a particular privilege because terms and conditions of this relationship.
Of that guide this relationship, yes.
That's
The
something.
relationship that he enters into is, I am their God. You are my people.
Yeah.
So I have to now provide for you, care for you, blah, 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 as your God.
So all of these things that even as individuals we beat ourselves up about and we get hyper concerned and consumed with, If God has said, once you're my people, I'll feed for you, provide for you, whatever. Why are you taking thought for these things? Again, you're
That's then now you're going to read Matthew again and read it a different way.
Yep.
Seek ye first the kingdom and all these things will be carried out to you. Your father know you need all these things, because you're
the very hairs on any one of your own heads numbered. Why are you concerned about? And what you often hear people do when they are afraid or worrisome or whatever is like, well, you just don't understand my circumstance. And God is saying, it don't matter once you are part of the people.
Oh, my favorite verse, my new favorite verse, is one that I hear Pastor Wright say all the time. It's 1 Corinthians 10:13.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to mind when you said that. We could go from 11, but it's actually verse 13. Those things happened to them as an example, as examples for us. They were written down to warn us. This is 11, 1 Corinthians 10:11.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we are living at the time when God's work is being completed. So be careful. When you think you are standing firm, you might fall. Verse 13. You are tempted in the same way all human beings are. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted any more than you can take. But when you are tempted, God will give you a way out.
Yeah.
Then you'll be able to deal with it. Read it in the NIV, please.
I'll just read 13, or you want the whole thing?
Yeah, just 13.
No temptation has taken you except what is
common to man. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No temptation has taken you except what is common to man. Right?
And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will provide a way out so that you can endure it.
Right. So
we always get concerned that, boy, this is just me. I don't think anybody else had this. No. And
never coming up with something new for you.
Correct.
Whatever He did for you is what's common for everybody else. And this is why I struggle with the people who want to differentiate between sin and start to deal with sins on the individual manifestation. What is common to man is the battle of the will.
Yep. That rebelliousness,
that is what is common to man.
How it manifests is.
So that makes me no real different from you if I doing this and you doing that, because
we still have
in will and I battle in will.
Mm-hmm.
And if we see it any other way, that's how we end up with prejudice and self-righteousness and whatever.
So I was talking to a buddy of mine on Sunday gone, and he was commenting that delayed obedience or discretionary obedience is still disobedience.
Yes.
And so what I might be very good at studying, but not be very obedient with my diet. And he might be very good at his diet, but might be piss poor when it comes to applying himself to study.
Mm-hmm.
Get caught up and come up with a hierarchy as to which is worse, and God is like, but is this
all of that is will.
Yes.
All of it is will.
Yeah.
You think about the and this is why I go back here. The first sin was a will sin. I want the fruit. He said not to eat it. Jesus's most stressful moment was, I don't want to do this, yet not
He
my
said
way.
to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And as with, and here's the thing, Eve didn't have a corrupt frame that was influencing her for that.
Yeah.
Jesus had a corrupt frame and a pure choice.
She had
Huh?
an influencer.
She had an influencer, but she didn't have a corrupt frame. So it
Correct.
wasn't that she was, generationally positioned, or
Yes.
sin wasn't in her to say, well, she was predisposition towards
Mhm.
Yeah.
towards whatever that we use the excuse of. Well,
Mhm.
I'm in a weakened state. She wasn't, and she still had the same battle of the will.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Jesus was predisposition, but he still had the battle of the will and overcame.
She was like the human version of Lucifer, because Lucifer wasn't predisposed either.
Correct.
My boy just decided to. Yeah.
And here's the thing: Jesus was predisposition, and he made a choice.
All the odds stacked against him. He's like, nah, I'm not doing this.
Especially when you read his family line and all the people who was in it.
Yep.
So all the genes that he have.
David, Solomon, come on now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ruth? No, Ruth.
Rahab.
Rahab, good.
Ruth
Some
too.
special folk.
Mhm.
Ruth too, yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Some special folk.
Even the girl who sleep with Judah's son wife,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who died and didn't get married.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mm.
So yeah, man. So I don't know if you was following offline before you came on, Cliff, but I was reading Deuteronomy 29:19, and the version I had used the word promise and covenant, and I was asking what's the relationship between promise and covenant, and we was walking through that, and what we realized is that a promise is an oath, and an oath that is, how do they say it? A
Guarantees the covenant.
Yes, that guarantees a covenant. It's almost like a commitment to a covenant, and a covenant is a legal or formally binding agreement between two parties to guide their relationship with stipulations. And so we was kind of talking about that, and how if we come into this whole understanding that God is intending to be the God of humanity and humanity be his people, and he walked through that with Israel and then extended it to everyone else.
Mhm.
What are the implications of understanding that if you accept the lordship of Jesus, you now become a part of that covenant and have that security? What are the implications of that for all the things we talk about as believers? How does it influence? We was talking about things as it was coming to mind. It influences evangelism. It influences social justice. It influences how we deal with other Christians. Just how we deal with people as a whole.
Mhm.
And then it gives us a measure of security in our relationship with Jesus. We've been talking more recently about that on and off switch when we're not doing right and we're doing right, and are we in relationship? Are we not in relationship? The only time we stop being in relationship is when we continue to perpetually demonstrate that Jesus is not Lord, and then remove ourselves from belonging to the people
Mhm.
because we are not acting according to, like, we remove ourselves from being a part of the people. But as long as we remain a part of the people, we under the terms of the covenant and have that security of it because God is faithful.
Mhm.
And that should give us a measure of peace.
As you were saying that, Jared, it also has me thinking, that is what counters this whole concept of legalism. Because if you don't have to try to earn peoplehood status. You make choices that demonstrate that, hey, I am, and maybe the reason so many Christians are frustrated is because they're not making any choices to accept peoplehood. They're trying to that.
Mhm.
That's like literally like me. I'm only gonna hang out with Jewish people. I'm only gonna speak Hebrew. I'm trying my best to be a Jew when I ain't.
I think that's the that's the light that Paul came into when he was pushing back against the I don't need all of that.
Yeah. All this Judaizer stuff, right? Yeah.
that had value and it had purpose, but
I don't have to be now.
Yeah. And on the flip side of it, it also is saying, although I am now one of the people, that is not freeing me. So he's like, all things lawful, but not all things expedient. So although I want to be people,
Yes.
I am not now going to wide out.
yes,
Yeah.
so
you
back to
see
our
that-
illustration.
Yeah.
This man give me this job. Like he didn't have to give me this job. He do my solid by giving me this job.
Yeah.
And while now I have security in the job, don't mean I should go and
While out.
while
Make
out.
him regret the decision to make sure I have a job to take care of my kids.
Correct.
Why do that, right? Yeah.
That's a big statement of ingratitude.
Ooh.
For the man to get that work.
Yeah, boy.
And if the company have a certain set of values and whatnot, you're not showing yourself to be, a true willing participant to the culture of the company and the things all the company to be a representative of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this makes this thing feel a lot easier.
It's freeing, is empowering, is any number of things because you realize, why am I? Yeah.
And now while I belong to this family of believers, I recognize that water is not important. Water is important.
It's
not the
important, yeah.
sand.
Mm-hmm.
Water is important, not the sand.
Yeah.
Or Fiji.
That's most important. Not.
I know some people who will say the sand is not even good. You shouldn't even drink that. I know people who will say that.
It also helps you even without looking at the Hebrew, understand the context of. Remember the thing we were discussing a couple of weeks back with when you started talking about comparing days and honoring days and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
In context, they always say what text without context is pretext, right? You'll get all the wrong that's the point of misconception. It's wrong. If you're not understanding what the context of this conversation actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And
one of the things we came up that stood out to us, Cliff, was I will be their God, they will be my people, not he will be my God, I will be his person.
Okay.
We have, our individualistic society puts greater emphasis on God and me, not God and us.
Yeah.
And how much does it change how we show up in the space when it's God and us, not God and me?
Me. Mm-hmm.
Not saying that God is not a personal God, because we see that clearly in the scripture. He had a personal relationship with David and Moses. Moses was his friend. He had a different relationship with Moses than he had with Joshua, but Moses was his friend. Abraham, he even had a covenant with Abraham that was separate and apart from the covenant he did with Israel.
Mm-hmm.
But the covenant we become a part of when we accept Jesus is a God and us, not God and me.
Understood.
How does that, is the question is, if I come with that, how does that change the way I show up in the space? What's different?
Yeah.
And so we're kind of wrestling that a little bit as well.
I said this a few times to a few different people. I said, I think over the years, I've changed the way I view a lot of things in life. And one of the things that I say a lot of times is don't let people change your true nature of who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because bad things have happened to you or just because certain situations have come into your life should not dictate you changing who you are. You may be cautious from that point moving on certain things, but it shouldn't change me from being a good-natured person. If I'm a giving person, a kind person, then I should not change being a kind person just because some things have happened to me.
Yep.
Right.
I'm using you guys as an example, and this is just an example. Jared, and Jerry are my friends, not because they choose to be or not to be. It's just because I said that they're my friends.
Correct.
Period. And I'm going to treat them like they're my friends, regardless of whether they treat me like they're my friends or not. I made that up in my mind, and that's kind of how I see your question.
Yeah. So on the specific merits of that example, a lot of people, their friends are based on what the other person does, not on
Yes.
not on.
Transactional.
I have chosen you to be my friend, so whether you're my friend or not, it has to be some kind of reciprocity in order for there to be friendship. And I always wrestle with that personally myself, because I see, Jesus says, "You're my friends because I chose you." Like, you didn't do nothing for me. I chose you, and that's why you're my friend. And I like that on its merits, but you're right in terms of broader application. I show up because this is what's expected of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And when you start dealing with people, there's just so many parameters, and because folks got stuff going on in their life and all kinds of stuff, and what do you say, good intentions. I said this to another person I was talking to, and I said, hey, there are plenty of people who say to me, hey man, stop passing to see your mom. I know they have good intentions. but ask me how many people have stopped by that said that to see it.
Yep.
Right? I don't hold that against them. I don't think any ill will of them, because there's a lot of stuff going on in people's lives.
right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
No, I'm gonna keep it moving and keep trusting in who I've been trusting in.
Cliff, it's always funny to the people who, when they realize, okay, you are keeping it moving,
Yeah.
they will be like, well, God told me to tell you. And I'm like, bro, respectfully, I spoke to him like all of 4 minutes ago, so I've been praying. Airwaves wide open. If you wanted to holler at me, but okay.
I got you.
You know what it is? When he spoke to me 4 minutes ago, I ran out too quickly, and he had a message to send you to finish the conversation. That's what it is. Yeah.
What that story of the prophet where he told him, "Don't go anywhere." That to me is, when God spoke to you, He spoke to you. Quit messing with all these.
But then you also see God has sent some people to talk to people. Hey, run up the road and give this man this message from me, please.
Yeah.
He actually
because what he did say was in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, right? So he very often, like, he will say something to me in my spirit, and then I will just happen upon a sermon that says it, or I'll read something in the word, or a friend would come up, Jared would be like, hey, I was just thinking, but it all aligns, right? It's not like he's going to tell me this, the word will tell me this, and then this one person's like, forget all of that now, just come on, jump by me. Yeah, and then you become the meal for a lion, right? So,
no, you don't become a meal.
But yeah, it's true. I just kill you.
He kill you and sit next to you you and your live donkey.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Just the donkey and the lion is lying by the side of the road with your dead body there.
Yeah. And the donkey's like, bro, I had to do my man like that. Nah, you were disrespectful. You didn't want to hear. Deal with that.
The donkey must be like, yo, good looking out. Because this fool. I am so glad. I just like, yeah, we go like,
wow.
Yeah. Wow. I forgot that, the donkey was just like, okay.
Can you imagine walking up and coming across that with you, the person comes see you, like it's a lion right next to a donkey with a dead body, just chilling.
Just chilling.
Yeah. Didn't even make an attempt to taste the guy, just kill him.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he didn't eat him or nothing. So I had a handful of other things I wanted to ask about, or share, not ask about. So the other one is Deuteronomy 8:1-5 and 29:5-6. So I was reading 29, and I remember I saw 29:5 and 6, and it made me think about 8:1-5. So I'm gonna read them together
8.
and then share with you what I came up with. But Deuteronomy 8, 1 to 5, and then 29, 5 to 6.
You want me to read the first one? I don't know, Cliff,
Yeah.
you want to take the second
Go
one?
ahead, do that.
All right. So I am reading. What version is this? New International Version. Yeah.
This is
That's
Deuteronomy
my
8.
favorite version to read Deuteronomy 8 in it, but go ahead. That one is my favorite. So
All right.
read it in that one.
Be careful to follow every command I have given you today, so that you may live and increase and may enter and possess the land that the Lord promised you on oath to your ancestors. No, the Lord promised on oath to your ancestors. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what is in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your ancestors had known, to teach you that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of the Lord. Your clothes did not wear out, your feet did not swell during these 40 years. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord God disciplines you. You said 1 to 8, right?
So 1 to 5.
1 to 5. That was it, yeah.
Yeah.
29.
5, Deuteronomy 29, 5 to 6 says, Yet the Lord says, I led you through the desert for 40 years. During that time, your clothes didn't wear out. The sandals on your feet didn't wear out either. You didn't eat any bread. You didn't drink any kind of wine. I did all these things because I wanted you to know that. And my version here says, I am the Lord your God. But for the first time ever, I read that as, I am Yahweh your God, which changes it completely. Because I used to read this and go, he wants us to know he is God. He wants us to acknowledge him as God. But the way this is actually written, it's more personal than that. I did all these things because I wanted you to know that I am this guy. I am Jared, your father, so to speak. Or I am Cliff, your husband. Or I am Jerry, your brother. Right? I want you to know me. And so now that I read all of these together, I came up with, I was able to extract 5 things. And it says, I wrote it this way. The wilderness experience had several objectives. He took them in the wilderness for 40 years and he lists out things that he wanted out of the experience. Right? The wilderness experience. The first thing I saw in Deuteronomy 8, 1 to 5 is this version says to take your pride away. Your version says to humble you, to teach you humility. The first thing that the wilderness experience is meant to do is to take away your pride and to humble you. The second thing that I saw was to test you to know what was in your heart. The third thing I saw is to test you to see if you would obey, which is slightly different. To teach reliance on him and his word. And then Deuteronomy 29, 5 and 6 says to know him as God. I guess number 4 has a trust component built in there. So it's to teach them to trust him. But I like to teach them reliance on him and his word. You had to trust him to rely on his word. To teach you reliance. And I was like, man, could I look back at my wilderness experiences or the experience I thought were the wilderness experiences and the harsh one and see those lessons? And if I knew that that's what he was trying to do, because notice he says this at the end of it, right? I took you there and these things happened to you while you were there, but I let these things happen with you so that you could. Do we see God doing these kinds of things in our spaces? And do we allow him to use these awful circumstances to deal with these bigger priorities? I'm reading, Matthew, and Jesus tells Matthew, get thee behind me. You don't have in mind the concerns of God, but the concerns of man. And the concerns of man is, please take me to an oasis and out of this wilderness, right? That's my concern as man. This place hot, it's sweaty, it didn't have no toilet, It didn't have no running water. I can't bathe. Like, gotta drink in this tent. It's hot in the day, cold in the night. Like, it has snakes, it has scorpions, it have all kind of things in this place. And I am not thinking about, Jared, you have pride issues that I need to work out here. And you living in this tent in this heat is meant to tamp down your pride. How important is that to you? Not really that important. I want a bed.
I was going to say I don't see that in the moment, right? But right.
I want a bed. That's what's important to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Deal with my pride from the bed. The bed gives you a sense of entitlement.
Yep.
That sleeping on the ground does not.
Correct. And even with the pillar of cloud, pillar of fire, they still, because the things they had time to get into when you're like, I just led you to the Red Sea. What is, you got water out of a rock, you have food falling from the sky, and you still like, yeah, but I don't have quail. What's up with that?
Yeah, so I saw these 5 things come out of the wilderness objectives, and I was like, man, how do I get to the concerns of God? And how do I perceive those things out of my selfish concern for my comfort and value them above that self-gratification and satisfaction?
Yeah. Jared, when you get a chance, share those in the chat if you could.
Okay. Did you all see anything else? I extracted 5, but I don't know if you all saw anything else. Maybe I overlooked one or missed something.
No, I didn't see anything else. I think you summed it up.
Yeah, it all came back to the same. Was a word Jared Genosko. It's like it is about knowing and being fully known.
Yeah,
that's a whole different level of relationship that he's aspiring to have with us, right? I don't just want you to know about me. Sit with me and get to know me and why I have chosen to enter into a covenant with people, my people like that.
I would go a step further and say, not just know me, but know me as God. Because the covenant is, I will be your God and you will be my people. But
Right.
if you
So
know
understand what that looks like.
God,
yeah.
You have a different kind of interaction in this covenant, right? Because you know what you have a understanding of who this God is or what it means for this guy to be my God. If this guy is my God, then what does that mean? Versus if that guy is my God, because that guy is a jerk. And if he's my God, what does that mean for me? But this guy, he's patient, he's loving, he's kind. He's my God.
Yeah.
What kind of interactions do I have as a people? Because it's now just not just the individual knowing him as God, it's us knowing him as God. Right? That is changing for me. All that us knowing him as God is because he wasn't talking to individuals. Well, he's talking to individuals as a collective. So it's both and. But for us to know him as God, what does that mean? Now you can help me with my understanding, and I can help you with my your understanding, and we're looking at the same thing but have a slightly different perspective, but then come to this collective understanding so that you all will know that I am Yahweh, your God, Jehovah, your God. What instead? I mean, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go and find what exact word is there because it just has Lord in my Bible. All right.
And in my sefer it says Yahuwah Elohim, which means Yahuwah, your God.
Correct.
Your God.
Correct. Yes.
So anytime I see Elohim or Elohim, plural or singular, it's your. It's referring to your.
Right.
Specifically.
Yeah.
I'm your God.
That I am Yahuwah, your
Your
God.
God. Yes.
Your God.
Yes. Your God.
So that you will know that I am him,
Yo.
your God. Oh,
Mhm.
that's even more powerful than that phrasing.
Yeah.
I just not know me as God, know me
Yo.
as yours.
Yeah.
That's like saying, I need you to know me as I am your father.
Mm.
What does that mean for you that I am your father?
Yeah.
You roll up on a female and you're like, I am your future husband. All these bros out here, you
Uh,
quit it.
I love it.
Man, how many wilderness experiences that I waste worrying about a flipping pillow?
Yeah. Yeah. We all guilty.
How many moments did you turn into 40 years? Watch out.
Jeez.
Woo! Yeah, I'm gonna
But,
borrow that. I'm gonna
40
borrow
years
that.
to, 40 years to know him and work out my pride, I guess it's worth it. Sometimes those things, you can't rush greatness.
I mean, when you look at it, man, God brought them out. He knew that he had to go through some stuff, but they were going to go through some stuff. But in a sense, he gave them the opportunity to try to fast track this thing.
Yes, it did not take that long.
Yeah, but they they took it to the nth degree. And here's the thing: there were people who got it, but they got dragged into the 40-year struggle.
Gotta wait on everybody that wait. No, you can't leave yet. He's still alive and he's not going.
Right,
Yeah, you know,
Yo,
you know,
drink some poison or something.
right.
in some careers where they talk about you just had to wait for your boss to die,
Wow,
and then you can get promoted. It's like, yeah, dude, there has to.
wow.
You still holding on? Jeez. And this one going in the gym, he's still eating vegetarian.
Yeah,
Goodness.
drinking this living water.
Yo, I ready to go,
Oh my goodness.
That must be
Man.
rough. But yeah, that messed with me this week. The objectives of the wilderness experience. And I guess it messed with me because Revelation talks about, when the dragon came after the woman, the Lord took him to the wilderness. They took her to the wilderness to
Mhm.
protect her.
Yeah.
Right? And then to take away her pride,
Mhm.
test her to see what's in her heart, see if she would obey, teach her reliance on him and his word, and to know him as her God.
Her God. Mhm.
Was it scary, Jared? Is that none of those things needed to take 40 years,
No.
but they just insisted on whiling out because. And to your point about protecting her from the dragon, remember when he's like, you could go through the city, but they will mess you up if you go through there. So I'm going to take you this way to protect you. And while I'm taking you this way, I'm going to do these things. But you decide, this wilderness kind of lovely, man. I want to.
Mm.
What it demonstrates to me is, very often we find ourselves in situations where we feel like we're waiting on God. And God is almost always waiting on us. So you're in the wilderness, you might be complaining, and he's like, well, if you would hurry up and show me what's in your heart, get rid of your pride, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
If you become the person who can move into the promised land, I'll move into the promised land. I'm waiting on you, but you messing around and letting all these moments turn into 40 years, right?
That's because I'm coming from corporate America. And I'm looking at the folks over in Tesla saying them jokers is having a good time. According to the way that I work and I do my ethics,
Mhm.
they over there is having fun. They loose and free and they get to do all this stuff, not realizing that them jokers on borrowed time. But from the outside looking in, my stuff looks stringent and hard
Yeah.
and difficult. Not understanding that this is building something in me.
Yep.
And then when I get over there, I found out the axe just come down. They was promised the world and the axe come down.
No,
Come on now.
not yet. I will preach.
Yeah. But But that's
Listen
what's
to me.
happening. I'm looking at everybody else.
Yeah.
And wondering how come they got it. Which the jury say how come they got a bed and I'm still sleeping on the ground.
A pillow. What was the famous pillow? My Pillow? Yeah, they got my pillows and stuff, man. What's up? What's up?
There you go, Tyler Sermon at My Pillow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So the last thing I would want to share that ties into this is Matthew 26, the whole chapter.
Wow.
Right? The whole chapter is about when Judas the Last Supper and then the betrayal and then Jesus be going behind before this Sanhedrin, and it ends with Peter denying Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right.
That was today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about this covenant relationship, right? And as long as you belong to the people, this God, this great loving God, continues to interact with the people a certain kind of way. I saw that for the first time in that lens. I mean, I've kind of seen it before. I mean, you've seen it before, but you didn't really pay attention to it this way. In how Jesus regarded Peter and Judas. As Cliff said, you're my friends because I choose you to be my friends, not because of anything you do. So Jesus chose Judas knowing exactly what Judas was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show him no face. He didn't treat him no way. When he was talking about what he was about to do, and Judas said, "Who me?
Who me? Yeah, who me? Is it I?
Me is talking about?"
You know what's funny with that, to be Jared? When they asked
Jesus
him,
said, "Yeah, you're wretch. Get out of here, you betrayer."
Friend.
He didn't do none of that. He said, friend, do what you had to do.
Yeah. Do you?
And I believe that Judas had stay up the night and make it to the next day. Jesus would have welcomed him back, hug him up, dust him off, and send him out again. Right? Peter tells Jesus, "Who? Me? I would never do that. Never me.
Mm-hmm.
Never me." Jesus said, "Boy, before the morning, you go say you don't even know me. But come let me eat now." Oh, no. In the morning, you ain't going to know me. But I under stress and I need to pray. Come pray with me. You who will say you don't know me tomorrow.
Yeah, come on, pray with me now.
Pray. Mm-hmm. Yo, that kind of interactions. I wrote it down here. Jesus regards
praying that you don't get sifted like wheat.
Right?
Yeah.
Jesus' regard for interactions with Peter, Judas, and the other disciples, because they all ran away from him, and he tell them that, right? I eating this dinner with you, we doing this thing, but I know in the morning, ain't none of they gonna be around. Understanding their hearts and where they actually were, what they would do and what they wouldn't do. Yet he kept them around and then treat them with anything but love and grace. They belonged still. Even Judas. They belong still because the relationship does not fluctuate based on what you do in terms of your relationship status. Doesn't shift from what you do today versus what you do tomorrow. The relationship status is.
It is. Mm-hmm.
And then there are moments in the is.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't treat them according to how they showed up. Treated them according to what they were to him. And that messed me up today. That messed me up today.
Yeah. I feel that. Two jokers got their mama to come talk to him and try to put him in on the right and left.
And he's like, y'all don't even know what you're asking. That ain't mine to give.
Having the clue. Having the clue.
Like, yo.
Can that scene that you just talked about? First I celebrate pass over my Last Supper with you, and then I go through all this, and I tell you you're not going, you're going to deny me, and you go betray me, and look, come pray with me in the garden. But I just fed you and stuffed you, and I need you to stay up with me while I go pray.
Yeah.
Them jokers was having the itis big time.
And it was the middle of the night.
It is the middle of the night. That's what I'm saying, it's the middle of the night. So he goes and prays. The angels had to be like, look, you know you prepared for this because you all alone. Them jokers back there sleeping right now. You all alone in this. We need you to be strong. You know what I'm saying? We need you to endure. And then he go back and see them jokers sleeping. He's like, yo, could you just stay up for a few more minutes?
Yo.
And help a brother out?
Yo, because there's a hard moment for him, right? There's a hard moment.
Yes, I'm really struggling.
Singularly, the hardest moment, right?
Come on, man.
And they just like, yeah.
I believe Christ is like, yo, this is a hard moment. Like right now, I could be like, man, forget this. Forget this. I'm done.
You didn't show up for me when I needed you the most. I done with you. You know how many good God-fearing people would feel justified in that?
They'll be saying things like my cutoff game is strong.
and if they was about to make a sacrifice for you, they're like,
yeah.
Yeah, with this. Nah.
You're on your own.
Come on,
do that yourself.
Yeah. Man, I remember, people who you're thinking, you about to do things on their behalf, and they're wilding out. And I'm complaining to God, and he's like, yeah, but pray for them right now, though. I'm like, come again? All of a sudden, I'm like, no habla English. What? And he's like, no, right now. Yeah, do it.
The other thing that stood up to me is that Jesus says, do you think I can't ask my Father for help? He would send an army of more than 70,000 angels right away. But how then would the scriptures come true? They say it must happen in this way. Which then changes the whole, if and this is where I go back to the tie into the Deuteronomy, the 5 things. If I understood the objectives of the wilderness and navigate the space differently, if I have in mind the concerns of God, I navigate my experiences differently. And then I relate to the people differently because it's now not them, but this is how it has to be because of what God working, right? So I don't have any personal beef with you, while it would probably be better if he wasn't born and it wasn't you, right? Don't let it be you. Yeah. I don't really have any personal beef with you because this is all a part of the thing.
That's amazing.
That kind of awareness and presence of mind and perspective takes a kind of gymnosco with the man to be able to take that and apply that to these human circumstances. Yo, pick up the man here, put it back. We're not here for that today. Let it rock. Yo, 70,000 people. If I even say,
yes,
they down here, they wipe everything out to know. To know that you have that and you like it. Hold straight. We gotta do this. Just bigger things at play here.
Bigger things
priority.
Bigger things at play. Yo, he agonized with this things that blood came from his head. Because he could have said, I'm done. He could say, you know what? It's too much. It's too much.
So I noticed that he asked 2 different things, right? I always thought he asked the same thing the same thing 3 times. But he firstly asked, if it is possible, take this cup from me. The second time was, is it possible?
It's like he's like,
is it possible?
Is it possible?
Is it possible for this to be taken away?
Mm-hmm.
But if I must, then your will be done.
Yep. There it is. That one right there.
But if I must,
What the kids say? That right there.
is there any other way we can do this right now?
Is it any other way we can do it?
There's another option.
Yo, because the realization of this thing right here is serious.
Yeah.
Is there another
So
option?
it have to be this way. We had to go. I can't get an Ozempic and just skip the gym.
Look at you. Look at you. All right.
Come on.
Yeah, man.
Come on. Hey, what? I'll just eat vegetables for a week. No more bread.
Yeah.
Just
Let me
don't
try
make me go in
that,
the gym,
that
please.
Atkins for a week.
Don't make me go in the gym, please.
Oh.
Please.
I know some writers have said, like Egg White have said, that his greatest fear was the separation. Because he understood fully what we're discussing here, right? That you're my God, I'm your part of your people here. And to not have that dynamic is, and I guess that's what people experience Judgment Day, right? Those who not part of the people anymore, they'll be like,
Yeah. That brings the meaning, my God, why have you forsaken me? Even more, even deeper.
because there's no coming back, no second chance, no nothing, right? It's like, this it?
Yeah.
Cliff, Matthew 26:50. Jesus replied, "Friend, do what
15?
you came to do."
You said
That's
50?
in the garden, you know. When the man come up and kiss him in the dark with the whole man, all these men carrying torches and clubs and things, clubs and swords. Jesus said, "Friend, friend."
Mm-hmm. You didn't say perpetrator, bad man, whatever. It's like, friend.
He even ignore the man because he could have just. He said, "Friend, do what you came to do."
Friend. Can you imagine being in the garden, seeing folks coming through the garden, and you know they're coming for you, and your disciple is leading the way.
Because he know where all it is be in the garden in the night, right?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And then he come up to you with everybody else behind him with tiki torches and all this other stuff. And
he said,
talking about, someone gonna come kiss you.
Greetings, Rabbi.
Greetings, Rabbi, right.
My man's. Boom. Yeah.
Right. Like, this ain't a setup.
No shame.
That's just, man, that's something, man.
I was for what, 30 pieces of silver?
He didn't even get to spend.
Yeah.
He thought he was getting money for the treasury.
Question, how much money, was it the same 30 pieces of silver they gave Delilah to betray Samson?
Potentially, I don't know. You could ask.
I'm just curious.
That number's been thrown around. Them 30 pieces of silver been thrown around a bit.
I'm curious what 30 pieces of silver is worth in today's.
$5,500 pieces of silver because each noble pledged to give her 1,100 pieces each.
Wow.
And so she get 5. How much is that today? They ask.
So wait, she got more than Judah. Wow.
15 million.
15 mil.
Yeah, Delilah get 15 million.
Wow.
That's why she betrayed him.
Well,
Yeah, 15 million.
15 million.
She's like,
So it's 2 million a piece from each one of them men.
Come on now.
yeah, she's like, you about to go down because you're 15 mil? All right.
Yeah. You don't love me.
You ain't gonna love me the way that 15 mil loving me.
Hey,
That's
there
what
you
You
go.
understand?
My goodness.
Whatever they do to you, I'm gonna be long gone by the time they even do it.
All up in the Maldives, chilling. Yeah.
That's it. So how much was the 30 pieces of silver then?
That seems like real
$264.60 as of 2022.
200 what?
$264.
for 30 pieces of bruh.
Well, it must have been, but it must have been big money back then.
Has messed up nothing, boy. So you betray me quite literally for next to nothing.
Small money.
For like a happy meal. What's up with that?
Mm.
Man.
$265
Oh, went up a
in
couple of
2022.
went up a couple of dollars. Huh?
It was rounded up as 265.
Let's just round it to 300.
Yeah, even so.
Wikipedia says between $91 and $441.
Yeah.
15 million to
Yeah.
300. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just should have taken some notes from Delilah, right?
There's some estimates that it could be anywhere from $90 to $3,000 in today's currency. That was in 2017, but all of this is dependent on what kind of coins, the size and the weight of the coins. Because it's not just 30 coins. It's...
So at what point did Judas really know that he messed up? It was at this point here that he realized.
That's it. That's all I'm getting.
It was when they string him up and he didn't fight back. When he finally went up on the tree. Because Judas died the same day Jesus did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when he realized, oh, the man was serious about this whole dying thing. And I am the one who made it happen.
And I'm the one who, and I'm the one who did it, who started it. Could he have realized and gone through in his head scriptures, because you knew he had to know them?
Yeah, he did.
And realized that I was the one that was written and foretold about. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that? Going through in your head and realize I was the one that was right, and I did it.
Yeah.
And I did it.
They saw me coming, and I didn't even see it.
And I didn't see it. And I didn't even see it. And he gave me chances, and I didn't even see it.
And he was so sweet to me about it.
By my own stuff, my own greed, my own thoughts. Oh my goodness. And I go down in history now.
Yeah, that would cause me to want to kill myself too.
Man.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. Wow.
Yeah, this formal relationship, this establishment of a relationship that is literally set as long as we participate is, I feel differently as a result.
Yeah.
Relationship is important.
New lenses.
There you go.
I want this relationship with you all. I used to say you want that relationship with me, and he wants that relationship with us. He's not trying to do it with me alone. He's trying to do it with me, but he's trying to do it with me and you, and you, and you, and you. He's trying to do it with us. It's an us thing. It's not a me thing. Does that make a difference to you all, me versus us?
It
and
does.
What difference does it make to you?
Jeff, you want to go first?
Wait a minute, say it again.
Does me versus us make a difference to you? And if it does, what difference does it make? He wants this relationship with us, not as opposed to me.
I mean, it makes it personal. I mean, for obvious reasons, it just makes it personal.
Us or me?
Us. I mean, me.
Mm.
Me.
Mm.
Me. It makes it. There's a song that's playing in my head, "Personal God." I can't remember who sang it, but I'm just saying. Huh?
Tony, you are my personal Jesus.
There you go. That's it. That's why I could not. I was trying to. I was like, who sang that song? But yeah, being my personal God, like knowing that you care for everybody, but still me in general, and not just me in general, but you want to individually be my God. To reassure me that there is a a covenant between you and me.
Mm.
That just makes it more personal to me. I appreciate the us, but out of everybody, you still have time for me and want to make time for me and spend more time with me. You know, they say Enoch walked with God. There was a lot of people on the earth at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he still had time to put in with him.
Hmm.
So much so that it was like, man,
You don't have to
you
go
don't,
home to
you don't need to be here.
put the microwave.
You your thoughts, your whole lifestyle ain't even about there, man. This, come on.
I received that. And I understand, the appeal of that. I guess I was asking it from the other side,
Which side? Talk to me.
the us side, because I know that how we grew up and the society we live in, we have been taught it from the lens of me, not us.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I read here, I realize that it's us, not me. Now, us includes me,
Mm-hmm.
but if I start looking at it from a us, how does that change for me? And does it change? Well, I'm saying it does change for me now, but like I'm asking if it would change for you if you started looking at it from the reverse and started looking at it from a, all these references to you is a plural you, not a singular you. There's not a singular you in here in any of these promises. It's all plural.
Mm-hmm.
It's all group. It's all collective.
So I think
It's
almost
you all.
as strange as it sounds, the fact that I'm not so special makes it more special.
Tell me more.
Because so he's going to treat with me in line with the covenant he's made to his people. So if he says, do A and B, and I will bless you exceeding abundantly above all that you can ask or think, that's a covenant to his people. Once I'm part of his people, I benefit from that. It doesn't matter if I'm disadvantaged in some way. Yeah. If I'm born in a particular place at a particular time and my parents didn't have, I didn't have a gold spoon in my mouth, all of that is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're on my team, this is how all of my team fares. Likewise, even if you mess up because you're on my team, this is how you'll fare.
Yeah.
And you see repeatedly throughout the whole Bible how he deals with his team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Even Judas, right, friend?
Actually, that was different for me. Liking what you said, it makes. I just found that when you do the personal Jesus and it's just
Mhm.
me and him, I'm not thinking about others.
Yeah.
You have that, I have this. So one of the things that when I was in school, I had this book I had to read, and the book talked about um, the community versus spectacle, where people who come to a concert, they all have an affinity for the artist. They all have their individual experiences with the artist. We
Mhm.
all in this space sharing a communal moment, but we're not in community.
Mhm.
Right? We sharing this moment together collectively, but we're not in community. And it's kind of what's happening the way we do church, right? All these people we come and we praise God, but it's me and God in the space with you. What God is asking for us is this discipleship type community where it's us in relationship and Him.
Mhm.
And there's a whole different dynamic. If he was doing church and community, it would look a little different, right? If he was actually trying to develop community, it wouldn't just be about the worship service, it would be the worship service plus all these things.
Mhm.
Because the community is happening outside of the worship service. And it's not one or the other, it's both and. It's we do this and we worship together, but it feels different when we do it with these other things as a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
With
Which is
that,
what? Oh, go ahead.
with that framework of understanding, when I come to me, I am now in this dynamic and interacting with people in search of this thing for me. The people are just a means to this thing for me. When it's us, I am mindful of you and me and us together every time we come to do this thing.
Mm. We are Borg.
There you go. There you
We
go.
are born.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't have identity,
Right.
but my identity is within the group.
Which is why God was offended when they asked for a king.
Facts.
Because if you're understanding the us, there is no need
Yep.
for a king, only God.
Correct. Which is why I feel like the more I study, the more I'm pushing back against the, you know, just for me, just for me. Jesus
Mm-hmm.
came and did it just for me. Nah, he came and did it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Me and you. And just that simple turn of phrase changes the interaction between me and you.
It does. Or it should.
It changes the expectations now between me and you.
Mm-hmm.
It changes the responsibility now between me and you.
It changes the understanding of the commandments.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why throughout Israel's history, he laid down ordinances and laws to say, hey, community. Don't take all the stuff in your field. Don't glean all the stuff in your field. Leave stuff on the outside. Make sure.
Because you
Right.
are my people.
You are my people.
You and him too.
Yes.
And them too.
Yeah.
We are his people. Yo, things change when it's we and not me. When I have to think about the we, when I'm in a group
Mm-hmm.
and I'm accountable to the we or have to be mindful of the we, the decision making process is different than when I have to think about the me.
Again, which is why you always attack the weak person in the group that's really thinking about the him or themselves.
The me.
Yep.
Because then you destroy the weak. You look for the person that's like, 30 pieces of silver.
But see, the thing is, he was like 30 pieces of silver for us. he was like 30 pieces of silver for us.
Right. Right. But yeah,
Man,
it changed the whole concept of a lot of things.
I'm moving into the us phase of my Christianity.
Good pickup, man.
Yeah.
That's facts. I'm gonna have to hold on to that one. I'm gonna have to hold on to that one.
Yeah. It's hard to do in our society. I ain't gonna lie. Our society is not a collectivist society, and so there's a lot that, just structurally and socially, we can't identify with as well. Where they don't have a me in armed services. Armed services have that we over me space.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But it's drilled into them.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you start thinking about me, you affect the mission and the yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the only cultural context where we really have that,
That's why no man is left behind, because it's us. It's all of us. If we abandon him, we abandon us. We destroy the collective.
Correct. And we value the collective over the
Mhm.
individual. I think even Jesus does that. And I'm going to look at the children of Israel. I brought the collective out of Egypt. Y'all individuals don't want to go. That is your choice. Y'all can stay here in the desert and die.
Mhm.
I'm still taking the collective to Israel, as I promised. I'm also going to get rid of you all because you're going to corrupt the collective.
No doubt.
Right. I'm
Y'all are
giving
like
you
a
enough
cancer.
chances.
You're like a cancer that will pollute the body and the body will die. So chop
Yes.
it off.
Because I already know that inside the collective, I got to deal with enough stuff that's gonna be causing problems, but you will kill it dead. You
Correct.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I had to quarantine you from this. Man. All right, well, it's 10 o'clock. And thank you for indulging my musings.
Good musings, man. I appreciate that. I'm sorry I couldn't catch it at the beginning, but I told you what we were doing. So
No worries, no worries. I appreciate
Yeah.
you showing and celebrating over there and then coming and being a part here. So,
no worries.
Jerry, what you going on with today?
Woo! Where do I start, man? But yeah, in synopsis, it is because it's about us that makes it more special for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Cliff?
I'm gonna go with this relationship with God is a lot more special than I ever really knew. And this particular session has told me how deep this thing really. It has unpeeled a few more layers of how deep this thing and how personal this thing is. And now I have Tone's song playing in my head over and over. But yes, that's where I am. I'm landing on that in order not to take what I know you're about to say away. But I feel that. I feel that. So that's what I'm taking away from this.
Okay. Well, I've said a lot of what I'm going on with today already, but I had to recap or see it in a different way or add a different thing.
I meant to say personal and inclusive. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I understood it.
Yes.
That the unpacking of the covenant as not just being a nebulous word, but a word that means, a formal binding legal relationship and understanding that the relationship that was entered into old covenant and new covenant is the same relationship, just under different terms of I will be your God, you will be my people. That framework of understanding shifts all the things that I have learned, or gives me a now new way of approaching all of it. And that relationship is the driver. It's the relationship that's the driver, not the rituals, not the rules, not the terms of the covenant, but it's a covenant relationship. We have agreed to be these things to each other and then exist and do life in this way. And all of these things are just how we're going to navigate and deal with things when they come up so that we have it all, everybody's clear about what this thing is and what it's not, because it's a collective thing and we have to do it as a collective. It's not just me. It's not just me, it's us. And so we need to have terms for what this is going to look like for us in a way that's clear to everybody. But the relationship is the people and the God, which would then make the two greatest commandments make even more sense. And it keeps coming back. It makes the commandments make even more sense. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Have regard for him because of his position as God, and your neighbor as yourself. The intrinsic values that they are a part of this people that are also in this relationship with God. And so that intrinsic value causes you to act with a certain measure of care and concern. You know, and then everything else springs out of that, making it even more simple. We have complicated it with all kind of theological discussions that have value and merit to be discussed, but have meaning in this. And so that covenant idea has made this whole Jesus thing lighter, easier, more manageable, more relevant, more practical, less abstract. Also easier to teach. Because it's something we can all connect with, just being alive.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's my takeaway. I didn't get anything in the chat from anyone, so I guess we could go ahead and say a word of prayer to close out. Anybody want to volunteer? Well, not anybody. Cliff, Jerry, which one of you want to flip a coin?
I'm good at it.
Huh?
No, go ahead.
No. I said I was gonna do like the old cartoons where they said, you know, anybody want to volunteer, take one step forward, and then the whole line takes a step back, and it leaves one guy sitting.
Oh man.
So I volunteered Jerry.
All right, I can do it. I don't know what we do, but yeah, sure. Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to spend time in your word. We thank you for the way your spirit moves and reveals, you know, truth. And I thank you for the way that you have revealed yourself in a way that makes you real, tangible, personal to us individually, but then also as a collective. I thank you for the way you have this simple idea that has all these parts that reach to so many parts of us, and each one of them has its own depth. You know, just like the circulatory systems within the body, you know, each one of them is intricate and complex, but it's really a simple organism made in your image. I pray that we will internalize these things, make them a part of who we are, how we live, but then also not just keep them to ourselves, but also share them with everyone we come in contact with, so they too can be a part of the experience and come to know you as a personal God of us. Be with those who are normally with us today and who aren't for a variety of reasons. Those who aren't well, help them to be rested and feel better. And those who have other commitments, bless them where they are. And we are grateful for their continued commitment to be a part of this ministry and to participate. For those who stayed with us online today, we also thank you for them. And we pray that whatever we discussed was also a blessing and a light to them and an encouragement. Until the next time we come, be with us where we are and can help us to remain faithful to you, or at least to strive to greater levels of faithfulness to you, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. This is the first Friday in April. April has 4 Fridays, so we're back again on the 18th, which is Good Friday.
Yep.
Good Friday, the 18th is when we're back again.
Watch out now. Watch out.
Good Friday. So yeah, looking forward to the next set of conversations. Thank you for joining us, and until the next time, drink up.
Drink up.
We out.